Today is May 11th, 2003. My name is Drew Evans. I'm a junior at Marion High School participating in the Veterans History Project under the direction of Bill Munn. I will be interviewing my uncle who served in the U.S. Army. The place of the interview is at the house of Drew Evans, being me. Name of the person being interviewed is Tracy J. Theurer. Birth date December 20th, 1962. Current address is 9065 East North 00 South, Marion, Indiana 46952. Attending the interview is Drew Evans, the interviewer, Tracy J. Theurer, the interviewee, and Connie Evans, the recording operator. The institutional affiliation is Marion High School. First question. Which war or wars and branch of service did you serve in?
I was in the United States Army, and I was stationed over in Korea, but the war had been completed in 1953.
Okay, what was your rank?
I was an E4 specialist
Okay. Where did you serve?
in South Korea, guarded the DMZ, which is a demilitarized zone in Korea that's at the 38th parallel that separates the communist North Korea from the South Korea.
Okay. Were you drafted or did you enlist in the Army?
I was delayed entry program. I enlisted before I graduated midterm from the high school, Marion High School in 1981. So after I graduated, I was ready to go.
Okay. How old were you when you made this decision?
18 is when I left for the military. I decided to join the military probably at 17.
Okay. And were you still living at home at the time?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any other family members in the armed forces?
Not direct family members. Our grandpa Theurer was in the Army for 8 months, I think.
Okay. Why did you join the Army?
Well, I guess because since I was little, I always played Army and I wanted to be a soldier, so I thought I'd give it a try and go protect our country if I got an opportunity to do so.
Okay. Why did you pick the Army over another branch of service?
Because I wasn't for sure how long I was going to like it, and I wasn't for sure how good I'd do, and they was the only branch that had a 2-year enlistment at the time.
Okay. Was the United States at war at the time of your enlistment?
No.
Okay. Do you recall your first days in the service?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Could you elaborate a little bit?
On basic training or active duty?
Um,
Basic training.
Sure.
We took a bus down to Fort Knox, Kentucky, where I was to be there for approximately 14 weeks, basic training AIT, which is advanced individual training. Never been away from home. Mom and Dad didn't want me to go to start with, so they was all whining around. But anyway, so we got down there and we got to the reception center, and the first thing they do is start screaming at you, tell you to get your butt off the bus and grab your duffel bags and line up. We didn't know how to line up the way they wanted us to line up, so they just started yelling. And then after about 2 or 3 days, you start to meet your buddies that's going to go through basic training with you, and you're all the time getting in little bits of trouble because you don't know what you're supposed to do because you've never done any of this before. And these guys, your drill sergeants, has done this for 10 or 15 years, and they expect you to know it all right off the bat.
Okay. Were you afraid or anxious when you boarded the bus?
Well, I was excited about going into the military, but nervous because I wasn't for sure what I was getting myself into.
Was your departure hard on your family?
It was really hard on Mom. I think she was bawling. Dad, he didn't want me to go to start with. And then, of course, my brothers and sister, they always give us support. And, as I was getting old, being 18 years old, starting making my own decisions, they just wished the best for me and hope I did good.
Okay. How did boot camp prepare you mentally and physically for what was ahead?
Well, it got me in the best physical shape that I'd ever been in my life. I was like a rock from toe to head. Mentally, I thought I could whoop the world and was ready to do so. So I think physically and mentally they did a good job preparing us for our next missions.
Okay. Do you remember any of your instructors?
I do. One of my drill sergeants was Drill Sergeant Bazell. I don't remember where he was from. He was Sergeant First Class. My other drill sergeant was Tazinski. He was Polish.
Okay. Looking back, what instructor influenced you the most and why?
Drill Sergeant Bazell. He was the hardest one out of the two, but he was fair because I would get in trouble in basic training every once in a while, and he would make us always do push-ups or clean stairways with toothbrush and soap and water. But he was always there to make sure we was going to be good soldiers.
Okay. Could you describe a typical day in boot camp or training?
Sure. Oh, about 3 o'clock in the morning, the lights would come on in the barracks, and they would be yelling, uh, telling you to get your butts out of the rack, which is the bed, beating on things, making noise to make sure you was up, and so you wanted to jump up as fast as you could, which scared the heck out of you when you get woke up like that to start with. Then you would get dressed in your army fatigues and your boots. And when I went through basic training, it was winter time, so it was really cold down in Kentucky. We'd have to meet outside the Disney barracks where I stayed about 5 o'clock in the morning. And they decided since we was up so early, we might as well do some bunch of jumping jacks and push-ups and sit-ups and go run for a couple miles to make sure we was going to be hungry for chow at about 6:30. And then after we'd eat chow, we'd do a little more PT, physical training. And then they would have a schedule for us on what kind of training we'd be doing, whether we'd be learning how to shoot and disassemble and assemble our weapons, or whether we would be going to the grenade courses or confidence courses. And if the weather was too cold, which very seldom did they ever think of anything being too cold to be out in, we'd be in classrooms doing bookwork.
Okay. Did you serve in a war or a peacekeeping mission?
Peacekeeping missions.
Okay, and where exactly did you go?
I went from Fort Knox, Kentucky. I reported to the 8th Personnel Com in Seoul, Korea, which I got assigned to the 1st of 31st Mechanized Infantry Unit. I was stationed at Camp House, which is south of the demilitarized zone in Korea, for a few months, and then we rotated up to the DMZ. So I was in Korea the full length of my service.
Okay. Do you remember arriving in Korea?
I do.
And what was the first day like?
Well, I was really tired because we crossed the time zone and it was like 16 hours difference. And I'm not remembering for sure what day I left on, but I got there the same day, and I've been in a plane for 16 hours, so I was already mentally wore out. But then you pretty much do the same thing as you did going to the basic. You go to a reception center and they get your gear, and they get you lined up where you're going to be staying and what unit you're with, and then they will have classes, because the Korean, being in Korea, the customs and everything are a lot different. You have to learn the do's and don'ts of their country.
Okay. How many people went over on your plane with you?
Oh, I don't know. There was only one other guy out of my whole platoon in basic training that got sent to that place, Korea. McKellum was his name, but there was probably, I think we flew over on an L-1011. There was probably at least 100 from the United States to go there. I only knew one personally.
What was your main job or assignment?
I was a reconnaissance scout.
Okay, and what did you do? What did that mean?
Well, when I was hooked up to the mechanized infantry, we would drive these Jeeps that's got 50 caliber machine guns on them, and then we drove the armored personnel carriers, APCs. We would drive those around, and not so much on the DMZ with those, but on field maneuvers we'd drive them around for support for ground troops, basically people that 11 Bravo that's on the ground. And then when we got to the DMZ, we all was on the ground then. We didn't have the armored personnel carriers up on the DMZ or the Jeeps. We would do recons, which was reconnaissance in the daytime. We would walk around up on the DMZ and trying to find out where the North Korean commando units would be sneaking across the DMZ if we found such locations, and then we would set up ambush patrol at nighttime. As we would go back out and set up our sensors, and we'd have our night vision scopes, our claymore mines, and then we would hopefully catch them coming across the DMZ.
Okay. Did you have some special training or assignment?
Special training, I went to Chejdo Island for rappelling.
What country is that in?
That's also in Korea. I think Chejdo Island was off from the Black Sea or the Red Sea. I'm not for sure. That's pretty much that.
Okay. Did you see any combat?
We got in a few little skirmishes across the DMZ, firefights that didn't last long. And what was weird about that over there, the rules of engagement for us in the daytime, they would not allow any U.S. was combined forces, U.S. and the South Korean soldiers was combined forces. If we received any fire across the DMZ in the daytime, we was not allowed to fire back unless we received effective suppressive fire. And they determined that by if somebody on our patrol or something would get shot. And we did not get shot. We get shot at, so we was not allowed to fire back across the DMZ. At nighttime, if you're out on the ambush patrols and you positively identify a North Korean unit coming across the DMZ, then you was allowed to engage and resolve the problem.
What all equipment could you operate? Or did you operate?
Weapon-wise, I carried a M16 with a 203 grenade launcher on it. We carried our knives. We drove jeeps when we was back off the DMZ, military jeeps that had the 50 caliber machine guns, armor personnel carriers. We drove all small weapons, handheld weapons, the Dragon, the TOWs, which are like handheld missiles.
Did you sustain any injuries?
No,
Were there any casualties in your unit?
not from firefights.
Okay.
We had a guy that got off of a trail at Camp House, which is in Korea, and he stepped on a mine that was left there from the Korean War. And what happens over there, it rains for like 2 and 3 weeks, day and night. It's called the monsoon season. And since after the Korean War, they didn't recover all the landmines and stuff, but over the years they got covered up. And the rain over the years had washed the ground away, and that's why you stay on the trails over there. There was a fellow soldier that got off of the trail for whatever reason, and he stepped on a mine and it killed him. I didn't see it happen, but he was in our unit.
Were you over there during the monsoon season?
Absolutely. And it was the most rainiest, nastiest time I ever seen in my life. And we was up on the DMZ when the monsoon season come through, and like I say, it rains for 2 or 3 weeks, day and night. So all the little critters, like leeches and snakes and ground wasps and rats, they don't have any place to stay now, so because they're getting flooded out of their homes, the ones that live in the ground, so they head to high ground, and pretty much that's where we're at too. So we dealt a lot with the critters of Korea.
Other than that, did the monsoons affect what you were doing?
No, it didn't hamper our mission whatsoever.
Okay. Did anyone defect in your unit?
Not in my unit. While I was over in Korea, they had a PFC Joey White. I think he was from Ohio, actually defected to North Korea, and I left Korea in 83, December of 83, and I think it was 86 here in the United States. They had a report they found him floating in the Imjim River.
Tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences in Korea.
Well, let me think here. Kind of a fun story was when I was on guard post Gillette, there was a white dog, a wild dog, that used to chase us soldiers out of the bunker and we would go from the bunker to the little chow hall that they set up. And this white dog, I don't know where he come from, but he would always be out there, and he would chase us soldiers from the bunker to the chow hall, and we'd have to run because he's wanting to bite. And so after 2 or 3 days of this dog chasing everybody back and forth, not just me, I got wise and thought I'd sneak some food out of the chow hall, and I wouldn't have to run if I could pitch him a little food. So I started doing that, pitching this dog some food. And it got to be where me and this dog was buddies. And I nicknamed him Wolf because he looked like a white wolf. And that dog would wait on me at the bunker. And when I would come out, he would walk with me. And he wouldn't growl at me anymore, but if I passed any of my soldiers on the way, my fellow soldiers, he would growl at them. And ultimately, I ended up leaving the guard post, so the dog was still there. And I don't know whatever happened to him, but I got a tattoo on my chest of a wolf in remembrance of him.
Were you awarded any medals and or citations?
Several of those, if I can remember them all, I've had Army Accommodation Medal, Army Achievement Medals, President Unit Citation from President Ronald Reagan. He was the president at the time. Korean President Kim Il-sung, I think, was the South Korean president at the time. I got, I think, 2 Army Achievement Medals, one with Oak Leaf Cluster, and I got the Expert Rifleman, Expert Grenadier, Driver's Award, the NGM Scout badge. That's for being up on the DMZ.
How'd you get them?
How did I get them? Well, most of them, for just doing good and doing your job to the best of your ability and not, getting in any trouble you'll get. The NGM Scout Award or badge, we got that, and there's, it's selected people that got those that was actually up there on the DMZ that did a certain amount of daylight reconnaissance patrols and night ambush patrols. I don't remember the number we had to do, but we was out in the bush quite a bit.
Okay, and where did you get them from? Did they just give them to you?
Well, the brigade headquarters will get orders from, I presume it's the 8th Army Command, and then it's in the military you follow the chain of command, and then it comes down, and just like when you get promoted, you don't know nothing about it, and then they'll have like a promotion ceremony or award ceremony, and everybody will be there, and then they call your name out, and you go up front and center, and you're kind of surprised that you're getting whatever award or promotion that they're giving you.
Okay, so it was after you had already come back to the United States?
Negative.
No?
While I was in country. When I come back to the United States, I was a civilian.
Okay. How did you stay in touch with your family back in the United States?
At $3 a minute on the telephone. And then I got wise. At one point in time, I got a cassette player, and like we're using here, smaller version, and would record when I'd have time. I would just talk into the tape player and talk to the family, my brothers and sister, and mom and dad and everybody, and then I would mail it off. And then mom, she would mail back tapes. She would answer any questions or find out how I was doing, what I was doing, and who I was doing it with. She's always inquisitive on all that. And a lot of times my brothers and sister would also say hi and that they love me and miss me on the tape.
How often did you receive mail?
Well, they pretty much sent mail all the time, but we would get mail when I was on compound, when I wasn't up on the DMZ. Probably every other day, just about, I would get something from the States from home, and I would mail back. Not near that often. I didn't have much free time, but I would mail when I could.
So how long would it take to get to you? From the dates on that?
I think it was like 6 days. 6 or 7 days, I believe.
What was the most unusual thing your family mailed to you?
Well, I remember a funny story, kind of, that mom, I had wrote to mom or something and told her some things I wanted. She used to send me chocolate chip cookies all the time, and she would pack them in popcorn, I think, and beef jerky. And she would send like 2 or 3 dozen of these, and I loved them, but so did everybody else. So I would sell those chocolate chip cookies to my fellow soldiers for like 50 cents a piece. I was making cash, but and I would eat them. But I don't know, maybe it was the chocolate chip cookies. I was always getting things. I got a Pac-Man cake one time, I remember. I got a little Christmas tree over there, or they'd sent me a little Christmas tree. Yeah, and the family really gave me a lot of support. I never knew what I was going to get in the mail for sure.
Okay. Did you write back to your family at all besides the tapes?
I did. I wrote lots of letters, and I think to this day, Mom still has them all. And Sis probably got hers, and Tony probably don't have his. But I did. I wrote when I could.
What was the food like?
Well, now that's an issue itself. It takes a while to get used to eating their food. It's most of it's really hot and spicy, which is good for me because I like that and still like it today. But uh, unlike here, when you go to the store to get something to eat, you get the, like if you're getting a fish here at the store, you're just going to get the fillets. When you go and get something to eat there, you get the whole fish. You're going to get it raw. You can get it cooked. You can, and it comes with its head and tails and insides. So it's quite different eating over there. And if you're eating seafood, same thing. You're getting the whole whatever part of food you order. That's what you're going to get. They eat dog over there. I ate dog several times over there. It's called kegogi. It's like steak that we have here. They have dog farms. They raise dogs to eat. And
Do you know how to spell that?
kegogi.
Yeah.
Kagoogi. I would.
Okay.
Kegogi.
Okay.
But their food is, it takes a while. I've never ate so much rice in my life. And I could eat, still today, eat with chopsticks.
What was the most unusual thing you ate?
Raw dog.
And how was that?
Raw. With hot sauce on it.
Did you have plenty of supplies?
Yeah, they supplied us pretty well, I guess.
Okay. What were the weather conditions like at the DMZ?
In the summertime, it was extremely, extremely hot. Like the hottest time that I can remember, it was 119 degrees and 99.9% wet ball reading that the military uses, which is humidity for us. It was just terribly, terribly hot. And then when the monsoon season came, of course, it rained. I think that was in June, if I remember right. It would rain and rain and rain. Of course, everything's flooded. And then winter is terribly, terribly cold over there. I mean, just super cold. And back in the history of the Korean War, they have a lot of history of the Frozen Chosen, which were not only the U.S. soldiers during the Korean War, but the South Korean soldiers and North Korean soldiers actually froze to death in their bunkers and stuff during the war, that it would get so cold they would just freeze to death, not get shot. And there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that lost their lives from the weather.
So, what kind of different clothing did you have to wear for like the different weather conditions, or did you have to wear the same thing?
We had our battle dress uniforms, which is the normal camouflage, and then when we was on the DMZ, we wore jungle fatigues, which are lightweight ripstop material, and we had some tiger stripe uniforms, which is just real lightweight, different kind of camouflage pattern. And then in the winter time, and that's pretty much standard for summer or warmer months. In the winter time, we had our insulated underwear, military issue. We had field pants, which were pretty thick, and then we had like field jackets with liners for cold weather. Mickey Mouse boots, some people had. I've never seen those, but I guess they had them for some soldiers.
Did you feel pressure or stress at the DMZ?
Pressure or stress? Not stress. Pressure and not knowing if you're going to get shot? Yes. Pressure of being there? No, because that was part of the job. I was eager to go up there, did a good job while I was up there. Uh, Not stress, just wondering if he's going to get shot at or not.
What did you do to relieve stress or tension while you served?
Well, if you're on base or on a round compound, a lot of people go to the gym and work out. I got involved in martial arts. I did a lot of martial art training over there, Taekwondo, and so that occupied a lot of my time. A lot of people do a lot of different things.
Okay. Was there something special you did for good luck?
Oh, not that I remember.
Okay. How did you and other soldiers entertain yourselves?
Sometimes we'd go down to the village, neighboring villages like Tongdashan, Bongdashan, Yanjigo, and just name us some villages. And of course, you can drink, you can go into bars, or you can dance with the Korean women, or whatever you wanted to do, really.
Did you feel the drugs and alcohol were abused on leave?
On leave? No, I don't think so.
Okay. Where all did you travel while in the service?
Well, I just went to Kentucky for basic training, and I went to Korea, and I extended the tour for Korea's 1 year, and I had, after basic training, I had 18 or 19 months of service to do, so I was over in Korea for the first year, and I had orders to go down to Fort Polk, Louisiana, if I wanted to. At that point in time, I had a good job. I was driving for a full bird colonel, driving a car, driving him around like a chauffeur. And he told me he would take care of me if I chose to stay in Korea the rest of my time in service, so I did. It's just a military paperwork, 4187, that you put in, and it's going to get okay through the chain of command. So I stayed in Korea an extra 8 months, I think is what it was, instead of going down to Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Okay. Did you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
Humorous or unusual events? Kind of unusual events might have been, of all the security and all the extra things the service people had to do when President Reagan came over and he was up on the DMZ at our guard post. They really tightened up security, and they was checking everybody in and out, and even those fellow soldiers, to make sure nothing happened to the commander-in-chief. Humorous events, one of the highlights of being over there, I guess, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders came over the USO show. And if you're homesick and bored and want to see some round-eyed, friendly-faced people, that was it. And when they come over, they put on a really nice show. I think it was Bob Hope was in charge of that at the time, so we did that, and that was a one-time event while I was there. But that was a really, really nice that they did that.
What were some of the pranks that you or others pulled?
Oh, well, in basic training, I was squad leader. I was the 4th squad leader, and we haven't had any privileges as far as going to the PX or the commissary, the store, or anything like that. And we figured out, me being the squad leader, that if we changed our earplugs on our field jackets, we would look like we was in a different squad. And different squads at different periods through their training have more privileges. So we changed our earplugs. They had little bands of tape on them, so everybody else would know what stage of your training you was in. So we come up with the tape, and we changed our, this is funny, we changed our earplugs. So I told a couple of my guys in my squad that they could go over to the Class 6 store, and they wanted to get some beer. They was going to get a 6-pack, and I told them to get 2 because I wanted 1. And we was on the 2nd floor of the Disney Barracks, and they had went to the Class 6 store, and they got 2 6-packs of Budweiser, and I'm leaning out the window, 2nd floor, and they're getting ready to throw a 6-pack up mine. And somebody else in my room at the time yells at ease. And when they yell at ease, you're supposed to come to parade rest. That the drill sergeant was in there, and I thought my buddy in the room was kidding. And then when Drill Sergeant Bazell, that's why I said earlier in this that he was fair but stern, when he was standing behind me and wanted to know what Private Theurer was doing, leaning out the window, when I stood up and got in position of attention, I told him nothing, Drill Sergeant. Well, when he looked out the window and seen 2 of my squad members standing there holding a 6-pack of beer looking to throw it up, he wasn't very happy with me. So I kind of got in a little trouble there, but it was kind of fun. I had to clean stairways with a toothbrush and soapy water for a few days.
Do you have any photographs of basic training?
I have several.
Okay. Do you have photographs of your time in Korea?
I have several.
Okay. Can you get some out maybe?
Sure.
Okay. Would you like to pick a few favorites? And
Okay.
just say who's in the photo?
Take a second here. I'll come back to that one. We'll go with basic training first. Okay, here I am at Fort Knox, Kentucky. This is me, or this is right before when I'm leaving for basic training. This is myself here on the left, and this is Jeff McCord. I went in basic training as an E2 because I conned him into joining with me under the buddy program. So I started out higher ranked than most people. This guy here, now this is at my mom and dad's house, your grandparents. This is my recruiter that actually signed me up into the military, Sergeant Gerald's. And here is, I think it was called Family Day. I'm on the right giving my dad a great big old hug, and I haven't seen him for, I think it was 8 weeks the first time. And you can see my earplugs I was talking about. And Dad's crying, and down here in this picture, this is same day, Family Day. I got my arm around my sister, Connie Evans, and my left arm, my right arm's around my brother Tony, and then my brother Tim is next to my dad, and I take it Mom took the picture. And here I am standing outside our barracks at basic training, and in this picture is the same people, my mom, my dad, my sister, my 2 brothers were up in my room, and my dad's got my hard hat on, and I got my Alice pack, my rucksack out, and here's a picture of me in basic training when I'm up in a tree, all camoed up, pointing my M16 weapon at the camera. And if we want to go to Korea,
Sure.
the story I told you about the white dog that looked like a wolf, right here he is, and I think that was Guard Post Collier where I was. And that's after me and him got to be friends. And down here below, I'm in a club with an Indian friend. Sam Osmond was his name. He was full-blooded Navajo Indian. And it looks like we might be having a cocktail. And this certificate here shows the DMZ, demilitarized zone, and the area that the U.S. patrols over there to try to keep the North from coming over to the South. And here's a couple laminated articles that was in the Korean paper where the North Koreans shot at us across the DMZ.
So you were able to read the paper over there?
We got, and I have also, the Korean Herald. We would get the paper. It's the same paper like our Chronicle. It's just made in Korea. You know, it's the Korean update what's going on there.
So they do speak English?
They speak broken English.
Okay.
And then here's a couple pictures. Now this was probably Team Spirit exercise of '82. These are two South Korean officers while we're out on maneuvers. And here's a picture of a command tent, like a command post out in the field during the winter time. And you can see the snow. We got the camouflage netting over it. This little guy here, he's a Korean translator. We use those a lot. And they called them katusas. It was Koreans admentated to the United States Army. Here's just a normal Korean civilian, walking across the bridge that we had simulated bombs attached to, explosives. There's some of our equipment we had out there. Here's one of the Jeeps that I used to ride around in at one point in time on the field exercises. Brigade headquarters. Here's a, not sure what kind of tank that is, but that's one of our tanks and armored personnel carriers. Here I'm reading the map, trying to figure out where I'm at, if I'm lost or just misorientated.
Do you have any pictures of the DMZ?
Absolutely. Getting right to them. Okay, this picture here, you're seeing these sandbags with two tunnels. Look like little bunkers, but what those actually are is tunnels that the South Koreans had found coming from North Korea underneath the ground into South Korea, where they can move munitions, which are guns and weapons and stuff like that, and troops during invasions. And even today, the North Koreans still are tunneling. They make a lot of tunnels, and that's how during the Korean War they had a big problem. The South Koreans had a big problem fighting them because they was coming up not across so much across the DMZ, but even behind enemy lines through these tunnels. And these are showing pictures of some of the tunnels that the Republic of Korea, South Koreans, actually have already found and sealed off on the southern side. Here's some propaganda flyers that we had found up on the DMZ. Now, I don't read Korean well, but I would say that some of these are from the South, trying to get the North soldiers to come over to the South. And then, in just the opposite, some of these are from the North, I'm sure. And here's some more pictures of South Korea over there in the winter, showing how cold it is. Now, this bridge here is called the Freedom Bridge. It crosses over the Imjim River. And I think, as history has it, at the end of the Korean War in '53, where they was kind of stalemate at the 38th parallel, they had the choice of going north to be under a dictatorship or staying south or coming south under democracy, and that's why they call it Freedom Bridge. Now here I am holding an M16 in my hard hat and binoculars at a guard post. And while you're at Warrior Base, which is, we called it Tent City, that's like a staging area for the DMZ. They don't have running water, no running showers, no toilets, flush toilets there. But us soldiers, we stayed in these tents getting ready to go up to the DMZ, and you can see that pipe sticking out of the ground with sandbags around it. That was our urinal. That's what you're talking 60, 70 soldiers urinated in. And then down here you'll see these half trash cans, and these looks like little outhouses. Well, these trash cans are cut in half and got little handles on them, and this is also at Warrior Base, and that's what you go in there. And then everybody gets this nasty detail at some point in time that you have to pull these trash cans, half trash cans, out of the back of these little huts, and you put oil and gas in there, and you keep stirring and burn all of that till it's to nothing. And they do that so the flies and stuff don't get over to around the mess hall.
And how far was where you stayed from where you were?
From the Warrior Base to the DMZ, it was only probably 8 or 9 miles, I'm guessing. And then here I am out on ambush patrol. You can see it's been raining there. I'm soaking wet. My camo's washed off mostly. That's up on the DMZ.
How many hours did you typically work there
On the DMZ, we would be up there all day doing recon, and then if we found a spot that we was going to do an ambush patrol, we would come back, change our gear, leave some of our gear that we wasn't going to need and go back. So really it was almost a 24-hour thing. We would get some rest, we get 2 or 3 hours sleep at times, depending on what we found on our recon missions. And here this is me, and these are 3 of my buddies. We're at Warrior Base, and what we're doing, we're studying our operation orders to go to the DMZ, of what we're supposed to be looking for, where we're going to be walking. They give us compasses, maps, so we didn't want to walk into any minefields that's up there, and we didn't want to get lost and walk into North Korea. And I got there's a picture of what the Korean women look like. There's Suki, my girlfriend over in Korea.
You met her over there?
Yeah. The wife don't like that picture. This picture here actually is of North Korea. These trucks right here that you can see is North Korean convoy. And we really wasn't supposed to have cameras up there, but I knew I wasn't coming back, I didn't think, so I had taken a little 110 camera and took these pictures. So you can see how close we was to North Korea during the daytime. And this is the North Korean flag, which I think it borders in blue, red in the center. It's got a red star. And there's some North Korean machine gun bunker right here. And if you look real close at some of these pictures, you can see the little North Koreans walking around down here. Maybe it ain't that one. This is North Korean city, and I don't remember the name of it, but here's some North Koreans that's working on a fence on their side, and we'd peek out of the bushes and take pictures. And we didn't want to peek too long because they had a bad habit of shooting across the DMZ. And this is the South Korean flag, and here we are walking ambush. You can see how thick and marsh it is. Okay.
So, how many people did the same job as you? Defended the DMZ?
Well, there's lots and lots of soldiers over there. I mean, the actual scout platoon, the recon platoon that I was with, there was probably 70 of us in our platoon, our company.
Did you develop close relationships with fellow soldiers?
A few of them, and I have kept in contact with some of them until as recent as probably 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. One got in a bad car accident. He's paralyzed from the waist down. One stayed in the military, and I went down to North Carolina to visit him and his wife and his kids, and actually he's went to ROTC as an officer now. I haven't talked to him for a few years.
Okay, did you develop close relationships with any of the officers?
Colonel Kreisel was one of the gentlemen that I drove around in his car, like a chauffeur, and me and him kept in contact until 4 or 5 years ago. I think he's retired. He retired as a brigadier general.
Do you know how to spell his name?
James W. Kreisel, Crysel. He was from Alabama.
Okay. Did you develop a close relationship with the colonel that you Had anything major in your family changed while you were in Korea?
Yeah, as I was thinking there, my little nephew was born, Jacob Theurer. He's about 19 now. And my Grandpa Theurer, my dad's dad, he was actually dying. And I wanted to get home to see him before he passed away. He ultimately died of Lou Gehrig's disease at home. And then shortly thereafter, Grandma got sick and she passed away too.
Was or would your education have been supported by the GI Bill?
Yes, it would have been.
Did you continue any of your relationships with soldiers or officers after your service?
Just briefly after that.
Okay. Did you join a veterans organization?
No, I haven't.
What special training or career did you go on to do after serving in the Army?
Well, shortly after I come home from the service, I got promoted to uh, Shodan, which is first degree black belt in Taekwondo. So I come home, I was living with mom and dad, and I started teaching martial arts in their garage. And then after a while, we opened up a commercial martial arts school, and also was working construction as a labor at that time, and taught martial arts commercially for I think about 5 or 6 years, and then I just kind of got out of it and been working construction pretty much on and off ever since.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war?
Yeah, it absolutely did. Yeah, as to date, there's been 2 or 3 different little wars or conflicts that we've been in, and I sat there and watch it on CNN and think what I'd be doing if I was there, wishing I was there at times. Uh, Maybe before I was married and had a baby, it was thinking that I would go back in and make my mark in the military again. So maybe some of these National Guardsmen that they was taking from local areas that had wives and kids wouldn't have to go and maybe not return.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about the military in general?
I think they're doing a good job. Technology's come a long way over the last 20 years. Been nice to have some of that technology back then, but I think we're a force that nobody ever will be able to reckon with.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about the real price of freedom?
Absolutely. And that's an issue with me that like on Veterans Day, on any day, September 11th is a prime example in my mind that, the terrorists come over and bombed or ran into our towers, and all of our people got killed, and all the families that gets traumatized by that, and then everybody wants to show their support and fly their flags. Well, it pisses me off that people can't be patriotic before it takes the loss of a bunch of lives. I'm patriotic 24/7 all the time. People need to wake up and be glad they're Americans.
Did you or do you miss the service?
I do miss the service at times. I wish I was back there at times. And then there's parts of it I don't.
How did service in the Army and your experiences affect your life?
Well, I think it's made me grow up a lot for the better, finally. I think it's given me a more appreciative outlook towards family members and just be grateful for what we got. And I know the luxury of having refrigerators and toilets and beds to sleep on, not having to worry about snakes and rats crawling up on you and having leeches sucking on you at nighttime. People don't realize how good they got it here until, if you go someplace where I was, then you'd be more appreciative.
How do you feel about the recent war with Iraq?
I think we did a good job. We whooped their butt. I don't think I would have had all the cameras there. I loved watching it, but they was watching it too. I think they could figure out partially about where our troops was at the time, and I don't think that President Bush should have given them a deadline. I wouldn't have told them they got 72 hours. I'd have told them they better come up with them weapons or go to agree to all them agreements that they had, or else, and then they would have woke up one day with bombs on their head.
So do you believe we should have started Operation Iraqi Freedom sooner?
Absolutely. And without notice to them.
Why or why not?
Why is because I think like now, they're having troubles finding the weapons of mass destruction, which I'm sure they had. They did not get Saddam Hussein yet, not confirmed, because he was early warned. I mean, we could have attacked that place and did it with the precision bombing anyway, like they did. They did a really, really good job. But they had warning. They had at least 72 hours, probably longer than that. So they planned for that. We give them a way out, basically, I think.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that we've not covered?
Well, I think the U.S. maybe ought to make it mandatory, and I have a 3.5-year-old son that I'd hate to see go anywhere. But I think I think they make it mandatory that all males go in the military. I think it's good for
Is that it?
them. And that's about all I can say.
Alright. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just as a matter of record and acknowledgement, some of the questions above were developed by the Veterans History Project team working in consultation with the AIM Center and the Oral History Association. Special acknowledgement is extended to Donald A. Ritchie, Associate Historian, United States Senate, and author of Doing Oral History, New York, Twain Publishers, 1995.